Captain John Hayes stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Discovery, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. The station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. It had hundreds of lights blinking across its metal surface, and ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it like busy bees. "We're getting close, Captain," said Lieutenant Dan Cooper from his position at the controls. "The station is sending us docking instructions." John nodded and adjusted his uniform. Today was the most important day in human history. After 50 years of listening to radio signals from space and 20 years of building faster-than-light ships, humanity was finally going to meet their galactic neighbors. "Are our guests ready?" John asked. "Yes, sir. Ambassador Lisa Grant and her team are waiting in the shuttle bay," replied Commander Rita Stone. His second-in-command, John had met Lisa Grant several times during their long journey to this place. She was smart, calm, and spoke 7 Earth languages perfectly. If anyone could represent humanity well, it was her. With her were Dr. Carl Watson, a scientist who knew more about physics than anyone on Earth, and Dr. Amy Johnson, who had spent her life studying what alien life might be like. The Discovery moved slowly toward the docking bay. John could see other ships already docked there. Some looked like metal triangles, others were round like balls, and a few had shapes that hurt his eyes to look at. All of them were clearly built by minds very different from human ones. "Docking complete, Captain," Dan announced. John took a deep breath. "All right, everyone, this is it. Let's make history." The docking bay was filled with a breathable atmosphere, which was good news. The human delegation walked through clean, white corridors toward the main meeting chamber. The walls were covered with symbols and writing in languages no human had ever seen. When they entered the chamber, John felt very small. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. Around a huge circular table sat beings from different worlds. Some looked almost human, but with blue skin and extra arms. Others were tall and thin like walking trees. A few were completely covered in what looked like living metal. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The speaker was a creature that looked like a giant insect wearing robes. "I am Council Leader Vexther. We have been watching your species for some time." Lisa Grant stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for this opportunity, Council Leader. We come in peace, hoping to learn and share knowledge with the galactic community." "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel," said another being, this one looking like a walking crystal. "This is impressive for such a young race." "You call yourselves humans, correct?" "Yes," Lisa replied. "We represent all the people of Earth. We have many different cultures and languages, but we all share the same home world." For the next several hours, the humans answered questions about Earth. They talked about human history, science, art, and dreams for the future. Dr. Watson explained how humans had developed their space technology. Dr. Amy Johnson described the diversity of life on Earth and how humans had learned to live together despite their differences. The alien council members seemed interested but also concerned. They asked many questions about human wars, about pollution on Earth, and about how humans treated other species on their planet. "Your species has a history of violence," observed a being that looked like a giant squid with glowing eyes. "You have fought many wars among yourselves." "That's true," Lisa admitted, "but we've learned from our mistakes. We've had peace on Earth for over 60 years now. We've worked together to solve problems like climate change and poverty. Yet you still have weapons," pointed out another council member. "Your ships carry military technology." Dr. Watson spoke. "Up, we carry defensive systems only. Space is dangerous, and we needed to protect ourselves on the journey here." The questions continued for hours. The human delegation answered honestly about both humanity's achievements and failures. They spoke about human art, music, and literature. They talked about the scientific discoveries that had brought them to the stars. Finally, Council Leader Vexter called for a break. The Council must discuss what we have learned. Please wait in the guest quarters while we decide. The humans were led to comfortable rooms with windows that looked out at the stars. Lisa, Carl, and Amy sat together, waiting nervously. "I think it went well," Carl said. "They seemed interested in our technology, but they're worried about our history," Amy replied. "I could see it in their body language, even the non-human ones." "We were honest with them," Lisa said. "That's all we can do." Hours passed. Finally, a message came that the council was ready to announce their decision. The humans returned to the great chamber, where all the alien representatives had gathered. Council Leader Vexter stood up. The room became completely silent. "Representatives of Earth," he began, "the Galactic Council has considered your request to join our community. We have discussed your species' achievements and your potential contributions to galactic civilization." Lisa held her breath. "However," Vexter continued, "we have also carefully examined your species' history and current behavior. We find that humans are too aggressive and unpredictable to be trusted with membership in the Council." The words hit Lisa like a physical blow. She felt Dr. Watson stiffen beside her. "Your species has shown a pattern of violence and territorial expansion that concerns us greatly," said the squid-like being. "While you claim to have achieved peace, your history suggests this may be temporary. Furthermore," added the crystal creature, "your rapid technological development and your species' natural curiosity could pose risks to established galactic order." Council Leader Vexter raised one of his many hands. "The Council has voted. By a count of 8 to 4, we deny Earth's application for membership in the Galactic Council." Lisa found her voice. "But surely we can work together. We can prove that humans have changed." "The decision is final," Vexter said. "Your species will be restricted to your current solar system and the 3 nearest star systems. You may not expand beyond these boundaries without Council permission." "This is a mistake," Lisa said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Humanity has so much to offer. Perhaps in a few hundred years, when your species has matured, we will reconsider," the crystal being replied. "Until then, the restrictions remain in place." The meeting was over. As the humans walked back to their ship, Lisa felt the weight of failure crushing down on her. They had traveled so far and hoped for so much, only to be rejected and confined. Like dangerous animals. Back aboard the Discovery, Captain Hayes prepared for the long journey home. He looked at Lisa's sad face and knew that everything had changed. Humanity had reached for the stars, only to be told they weren't welcome. "Set course for Earth," he ordered quietly. As the Discovery pulled away from the station, John wondered what would happen next. How would humanity react to being rejected by the galaxy? How would the people of Earth respond to being told they were too dangerous to join the galactic community? He had a feeling that the aliens might have made a serious mistake. Humans didn't give up easily, and they definitely didn't like being told what they couldn't do. The journey home would give him plenty of time to think about it. 6 months had passed since the Discovery returned to Earth with news that changed everything. The rejection by the Galactic Council had hit humanity like a cold slap in the face. But instead of giving up, people had gotten angry. President Kate Morgan stood before the newly built Federation Council building in Geneva, looking out at the crowd of reporters and citizens. The building itself was a symbol of how much had changed. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth had joined together under one government. The Terran Federation was born not from conquest, but from a shared sense of rejection and determination. The aliens think we're too dangerous. Kate had told the world leaders during their first emergency meeting. Maybe it's time we showed them what dangerous really looks like. Now, as the Federation's first chancellor, Kate was about to make the most important decision in human history. She walked into the council chamber, where the most powerful people on Earth were waiting for her. General Roy Clark sat at the head of the military advisors. He was a tough man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his younger days as a soldier. Next to him sat Admiral Beth Turner, the woman who had designed humanity's first real space navy. Her ships were fast, well-armed, and crewed by people who had something to prove. "What's our current situation?" Kate asked as she took her seat. General Clark opened a folder filled with reports. "The good news is that our space technology is advancing faster than ever. The rejection motivated our scientists like nothing else could. We've improved our engines, our weapons, and our life support systems." "How much faster?" Kate asked. "Our new ships can travel twice as far and twice as fast as the Discovery," Admiral Turner replied. "We've also developed better manufacturing techniques. We can build ships in space now, using materials from asteroids and other planets." Dr. Helen Brooks, Earth's leading expert on alien life, leaned forward. "I've been studying all the data we collected from the council meeting. I believe we learned more about them than they learned about us." Kate raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "The council species are old," Helen explained. "They've been at peace for so long that they've become soft. Most of them seem shocked that we even had weapons on our ships. They're used to solving problems through discussion and compromise." "That's not necessarily bad," Kate pointed out. "No, but it means they're not prepared for a species that thinks differently," Helen continued. "They assume everyone will follow their rules because that's what civilized species do. They can't imagine someone simply ignoring their boundaries." General Clark smiled grimly. "Which brings us to our main question. Do we follow their rules, or do we make our own?" Kate had been thinking about this question for months. Every night, she dreamed about the look on Ambassador Grant's face when she returned from the council meeting. Lisa had been so hopeful, so sure that humanity would be welcomed into the galactic community. The disappointment had been crushing, but disappointment had turned into something else. The people of Earth weren't sad anymore. They were angry, and they were determined to prove the aliens wrong. "Show me the star charts," Kate said. Admiral Turner activated the holographic display in the center of the table. The three-dimensional map of nearby space appeared, showing Earth and the surrounding star systems. Red lines marked the boundaries the Council had set for humanity. "They've given us our solar system plus 3 nearby systems," Turner explained. "But look at what's beyond that." The map expanded, showing dozens of star systems that the Council had declared off-limits to humanity. Many of them had planets that could support human life. Intelligence reports suggest that most of these systems are either empty or very lightly populated, General Clark added. "The Council species have huge territories, but they don't actually use most of them." Kate studied the map. "What about their military strength?" "That's the interesting part," Helen said. "From what we observed, the Council relies heavily on automated systems and very small crews. They've designed their society to avoid conflict, which means they're not really prepared for war. But they have been spacefaring for centuries," Kate pointed out. "They must have some military capability." "They do," General Clark agreed. "But it's mostly designed for police work, not real warfare. They're used to dealing with criminals and small disputes, not organized military forces." Admiral Turner added, "Our tactical analysis suggests that a single human warship could probably defeat 3 or 4 Council ships of the same size. Our crew training, weapons systems, and battle tactics are all superior." Kate was quiet for a long moment. The room waited for her decision. "If we ignore their boundaries, we'll be at war with the entire Galactic Council, she said finally. Maybe, General Clark replied. Or maybe they'll realize they made a mistake and try to negotiate. And if they don't, then we'll have to be ready to defend ourselves, Admiral Turner said simply. Kate looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leaders. These were good people, smart people, who had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth and its people. They weren't warmongers or conquerors. They were simply tired of being told what they couldn't do. Dr. Brooks, in your professional opinion, what would happen if we started colonizing beyond their boundaries? Helen considered the question carefully. At first, they'd probably send diplomatic messages telling us to stop. When we ignored those, they'd send a small military force to make us comply. They'd expect us to back down immediately. And when we don't, then they'd have to decide whether to escalate or negotiate. Based on their psychology, I think they'd be more likely to negotiate. They're not used to species that fight back. Kate stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the spaceport where humanity's growing fleet was being built. Ships were launching every day, carrying supplies and people to the colonies humanity had already established in their allowed territory. What do our people want? She asked. They want to expand, General Clark said immediately. Every day, we get thousands of applications from people who want to join colony ships. They want to explore, to build new worlds, to prove that humanity belongs among the stars. The polls show that 78% of Earth's population supports expansion beyond Council boundaries. Admiral Turner added, people are tired of being told they're not good enough. Kate turned back to the table. Then we expand. We start with the systems just beyond their boundaries. We build colonies, establish trade routes, and create our own space-based civilization. And if the Council tries to stop us? Helen asked. Then we stop them, Kate said firmly. We're not going to let anyone put humanity in a cage. General Clark nodded approvingly. We'll need to move fast. The longer we wait, the more time they have to prepare. How long to launch the first colony mission? Kate asked. 3 weeks, Admiral Turner replied. We've had ships and colonists on standby, waiting for this decision. Then make it happen, Kate ordered. Launch the first colony ship to the Kepler 442 system. It's just outside their boundaries and has 2 planets suitable for human life. What about the Council's response? Helen asked. Kate smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a real smile. Let them respond. We'll show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The meeting continued for several more hours. As they planned the details of humanity's expansion, they would need supply lines, communication networks, and defensive positions. Most importantly, they would need to move fast enough that the Council couldn't stop them before they established a real presence in the disputed systems. As the meeting ended, Kate remained behind to speak with Admiral Turner privately. Beth, I need to know, are we doing the right thing? Admiral Turner looked out at the spaceport. Chancellor, the Council judged us based on our past, not our potential. It didn't give us a chance to prove we'd changed. Maybe we are aggressive, but we're also determined, creative, and we don't give up. Those aren't bad qualities for a spacefaring species. And if this leads to war, then we'll fight, Turner said simply. But I don't think it will. I think they'll realize they made a mistake, and they'll try to fix it through negotiation. Kate nodded. I hope you're right. 3 weeks later, the UES Pioneer launched from Earth orbit, carrying 5,000 colonists and everything they needed to build a new world. As the ship disappeared into hyperspace, Kate watched from the observation deck of the orbital station. Humanity was no longer confined to their small corner of space. They were going to build something bigger, something better than what the Council had offered them. And if the aliens didn't like it, they would have to deal with the species that had learned long ago that the best response to rejection was to prove everyone wrong. The Pioneer was just the beginning. Soon, there would be dozens of colony ships, then hundreds. Humanity would spread across the galaxy, not as members of the Council, but as builders of their own empire. The aliens thought humans were too dangerous to join their club. They were about to learn that humans were too dangerous to be left alone. 5 years had passed since the UES Pioneer first crossed into forbidden space, and the galaxy would never be the same. What had started as a single colonist ship had become a flood of human expansion that shocked even the humans themselves. Commander, Steve Parker stood on the observation deck of New Terra Station, watching the constant stream of ships arriving and departing. The station orbited New Terra, humanity's first colony beyond Council boundaries, and it had grown from a simple outpost into a bustling space city with over 2 million residents. Another batch of colonists coming in, reported Lieutenant Kelly. Brown, handing Steve a data pad. 3 ships from Earth, 2 from Mars colony, and 1 from the asteroid mining stations. Steve nodded, still amazed by how fast everything was happening. When he had commanded the Pioneer 5 years ago, he had expected to build a small research station. Instead, he had helped create the foundation of a new human civilization. Any word from the other colonies? He asked. All 17 colonies are reporting steady growth, Kelly replied. Haven Colony just finished their 3rd shipyard, and Freedom. Station is producing enough food to supply 4 star systems. Steve smiled. 17 colonies in 4 star systems, all established without the Council's permission. Each one was a statement that humanity would not be contained. The door chimed, and Colonial Governor Mary Collins entered. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, but she had proven to be one of the best leaders humanity had ever produced. Under her guidance, the colonies had not just survived, but thrived. Steve, we need to talk, Mary said, her expression serious. They walked to the secure briefing room where Admiral Jack Turner was waiting. Turner had been promoted to Fleet Admiral after proving that human ships could outfight anything the Council had. His fleet now included over 200 vessels, from small scouts to massive battleships. What's the situation? Steve asked. Mary activated the holographic display. We've got problems. The Terran Intelligence Service has been monitoring Council communications, and they're not happy with our expansion. The display showed a map of human space, with red indicators marking Council fleet movements. There were a lot of red indicators. They're moving ships toward our borders, Admiral Turner explained, not just patrol vessels. Real warships, some of them bigger than anything we've seen before. How many ships? Steve asked. At least 40, maybe more, Turner replied. They're being very careful not to cross into our space, but they're clearly preparing for something. Mary leaned forward. The intelligence reports suggest they're planning to force us back into our original boundaries. They want to make an example of us. Steve studied the display. The Council had been quiet for 5 years, sending only diplomatic protests that humanity had politely ignored. He had wondered when they would finally take action. What about our defenses? He asked. We're ready, Admiral Turner said confidently. Our ships are better than theirs, and our crews are more experienced, but they have numbers on their side. There's something else, Mary added. Dr. Susan Lee made a discovery on Kepler 442b that changes everything. She changed the display to show images of ancient ruins on the planet's surface. The structures were clearly artificial, but unlike anything humans or Council species had built. The ruins are over 10,000 years old, Mary explained. They belong to a species that was far more advanced than anyone in the current galaxy. Dr. Lee's team found artifacts that could revolutionize our technology. Steve stared at the images. What kind of artifacts? Energy sources that make our Fusion reactors look like candles, Mary said. Manufacturing techniques that could let us build ships in days instead of months. And most importantly, weapons technology that could give us a decisive advantage. Admiral Turner's eyes lit up. How long until we can use this technology? Dr. Lee thinks 6 months for the basic applications, Mary replied. But Steve, there's something else. The species that built these ruins didn't just disappear. They were destroyed. The room fell silent. Destroyed by whom? Steve asked. We don't know yet, Mary said. But the evidence suggests it was a war. A galaxy-wide war that wiped out the most advanced civilization that ever existed. Steve felt a chill. Do you think the Council knows about this? If they do, they've kept it secret, Mary replied. But this explains why they're so cautious about new species. They might be afraid of another galaxy-wide war. Admiral Turner stood up. This doesn't change our immediate problem. We still have 40 Council ships preparing to attack us. Actually, it might change everything, Mary said. If we can prove to the Council that we're not a threat, that we're actually trying to protect the galaxy from whatever destroyed the ancient species, they might be willing to negotiate. Steve shook his head. You're assuming they'll listen. From what we've seen, they've already made up their minds about us. Then we need to be ready for war, Turner said grimly. Mary looked at both men. There's a third option. We could try to contact some of the Council species directly, not through the official channels. Intelligence reports suggest that not all of them support the current policy toward humanity. Which species? Steve asked. The Altarians have been asking questions about trade with human colonies, Mary explained. The Cetians have been studying our technology and seem impressed. And the Regellians have been critical of the Council's handling of the human situation. Admiral Turner frowned. Divide and conquer? More like finding reasonable people to talk to, Mary corrected. The Council isn't a unified government. It's more like a loose alliance. If we can convince some species that we're not a threat, they might pressure the others to negotiate. Steve considered the options. War with the Council would be devastating, even if humanity won. But continuing to ignore them wasn't working either. What do you recommend? He asked Mary. We try diplomacy first, she said. Send secret messages to the species that might be willing to talk. At the same time, we prepare for war and continue developing the ancient technology. And if diplomacy fails? Mary's expression hardened. Then we show them what happens when you try to cage humanity. The meeting continued for hours as they planned their strategy. They would need to move carefully, balancing diplomatic outreach with military preparation. Most importantly, they would need to decode the ancient technology before the Council decided to act. 2 weeks later, Steve stood in Dr. Susan Lee's laboratory on Kepler 442b, watching her work with artifacts that had been created when Earth was still covered in ice. The artifacts were beautiful, made from materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. This is incredible, Dr. Lee said, her eyes bright with excitement. The technology is based on principles we barely understand. It's like they learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level. Can we use it? Steve asked. We're already using it, she replied, pointing to a device that hummed with strange energy. This power source has been running our entire research facility for 3 days. It's producing more energy than our fusion reactors, with no fuel and no waste. Steve felt a surge of hope. How long until we can install these on our ships? The basic power sources, maybe 2 months, Dr. Lee said. The weapons technology will take longer. But Steve, this isn't just about military applications. This technology could transform human civilization. What do you mean? We could terraform dead worlds in years instead of centuries, she explained. We could build cities in space, travel to other galaxies, maybe even solve aging and disease. The possibilities are endless. Steve looked at the artifacts with new respect. No wonder the Council is nervous. If they knew what we were finding here, they'd either try to steal it or destroy it, Dr. Lee finished. That's why we need to be careful. This technology could save the galaxy, or it could destroy it, depending on who controls it. As Steve left the laboratory, he thought about the future. Humanity had been rejected by the galactic community, but they had responded by building something better. They had 17 thriving colonies, a powerful military, and now access to technology that could change everything. But with great power came great responsibility. The ancient species that had built these artifacts had been destroyed despite their advanced technology. Steve wondered if humanity was destined to repeat their mistakes, or if they could learn from the past and build a better future. The Council fleet was still gathering at the border, preparing to force humanity back into their cage. They thought they were dealing with the same primitive species that had been rejected 5 years ago. They were about to learn that humanity had changed. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity was becoming. Steve looked up at the stars, where human ships were already heading to establish colony number 18. The expansion continued, and nothing the Council could do would stop it. Humanity had been exiled from the galactic community, but they had responded by building their own empire. And this was just the beginning. The warning came at 0347 hours, ship time. Captain Tony Miller was drinking coffee in his quarters aboard the UES Pioneer when the alarm sounded. He had been exploring the outer edge of the Epsilon Eridani system, mapping planets that might be suitable for human colonization. Captain, to the bridge came the urgent voice of his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez. Tony ran through the corridors of his ship, still wearing his sleep clothes. The Pioneer was one of the newest exploration vessels in the Alzajin. Terran fleet, fast and well-armed, but designed for discovery, not combat. "What's the situation?" he asked as he reached the bridge. 42 ships, sir," reported Commander Jake Williams, his first officer. "They appeared from hyperspace 20 minutes ago and are heading straight for us." Tony looked at the main screen. The ships were clearly alien, with the distinctive design of Council vessels. But these weren't the peaceful exploration ships humanity had encountered at the first meeting. These were warships, bristling with weapons and moving in perfect military formation. "Are they trying to communicate with us?" Tony asked. "Yes, sir," Sarah replied. "They're ordering us to leave this system immediately and return to our designated territory." Tony felt his jaw tighten. The Epsilon Eridani system was well outside the boundaries the Council had set for humanity 5 years ago. But it was also uninhabited, with no Council presence or colonies. "Send a reply," he ordered. "Tell them we're conducting peaceful exploration in unclaimed space. We're not threatening anyone." "Sir, they're not interested in discussion," Sarah said after a moment. "They're demanding immediate compliance with Council directives." Tony studied the tactical display. 42 ships against 1. The odds were impossible, but the Pioneer had advantages the Council didn't know about. She was equipped with the latest human technology, including some improvements based on the ancient artifacts Dr. Lee had discovered. "Jake, what's our combat readiness?" he asked quietly. "All systems green, sir," Jake replied. "The new shield generators are online, and our weapons are charged." "Good. Sarah, send one more message. Tell them we're leaving the system to avoid any misunderstandings." "Sir?" Jake looked confused. "Are we actually retreating?" Tony smiled grimly. "We're leaving the system. I didn't say we were going home." The Pioneer began moving away from the Council fleet, but Tony wasn't running. He was buying time while he sent an encrypted message to Fleet Admiral Turner. The Council had finally made their move, and humanity needed to be ready. The Council ships followed the Pioneer, clearly intending to escort her all the way back to human space. But Tony had other plans. As soon as they were clear of the system's gravity well, he activated the ship's new stealth systems. "Jake, plot a course for the Proxima Centauri system," he ordered. "Best speed." "Sir, that's still outside Council boundaries," Jake pointed out. "Exactly," Tony said. "If they want to play escort, let's see how they handle a real chase." The Pioneer jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Council fleet behind. But Tony knew they would follow, and when they did, they would find more than just one human ship waiting for them. 3 days later, Admiral Jack Turner stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching 42 Council ships emerge from hyperspace near Proxima Centauri. The aliens had followed the Pioneer exactly as Tony had predicted, expecting to find a single human ship hiding in an empty system. Instead, they found 75 human warships waiting for them. "Admiral, the Council fleet is powering weapons," reported Captain Lisa Chong, Turner's tactical officer. Turner nodded. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but the Council had forced the issue. "All ships, this is Admiral Turner. Prepare for battle, but do not fire unless fired upon." The Council fleet had stopped, clearly surprised by the number of human ships. Turner could imagine the frantic communications going back and forth as they tried to decide what to do. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Council fleet," said Lieutenant Commander Bob Stevens, the communications officer. "Put it through," Turner ordered. The main screen flickered, showing a Vorthan commander in elaborate military dress. The Vorthan looked angry and frustrated. "Human fleet, you are. In violation of Council space law," the alien said. "You will surrender immediately and return to your designated territory." Turner stepped forward. "This is Admiral Turner of the Terran Federation. We are conducting operations in unclaimed space. We have no intention of surrendering. Your species was forbidden from expanding beyond your original boundaries," the Vorthan replied. "You will comply with Council directives or face the consequences." "The consequences?" Turner asked. "You mean like the consequence of rejecting our peaceful request to join the galactic community? We tried diplomacy. You chose isolation. You were judged unfit for membership," the Vorthan said coldly. "Your aggressive nature proves our decision was correct." Turner felt his temper rising. "Our aggressive nature? We've been expanding for 5 years without harming a single Council citizen. We've built colonies, established trade routes, and contributed to galactic knowledge. What have you done except try to keep us in a cage? You will return to your boundaries, or we will force you," the Vorthan threatened. Turner looked at the tactical display. 42 ships against 75. The numbers favored humanity, but the Council ships were larger and had been designed for war. This would not be an easy fight. "I'm giving you one chance to leave peacefully," Turner said. "We don't want war, but we won't be bullied by species that are too afraid to let us prove ourselves." The Vorthan's response was to order his ships to open fire. What followed became known as the Battle of Proxima Gate, and it changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Council ships were larger and more heavily armed, but they fought like they were conducting a police action, not a real war. Human ships were smaller and faster, with better trained crews and superior tactics. They fought like their lives depended on it. Because they did, Turner watched as his ships moved in coordinated groups, using their speed and maneuverability to avoid the Council's heavy weapons while striking at vulnerable points. The humans had studied every piece of data from their first encounter with Council technology, and they had found weaknesses. "The Council ships are having trouble with our jamming systems," reported Captain Chong. "Their automated targeting systems are designed to work against Council technology, not ours." "And their crews?" Turner asked. "Inexperienced," Chong replied. "They're making basic tactical errors. It's like they've never been in a real battle before. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 15 council ships had been destroyed and 23 others were damaged beyond repair. The human fleet had lost only 3 ships, with minor damage to several others. The remaining council ships retreated, but not before Turner sent them a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. "Tell your council that humanity will not be caged," he said. "We offered friendship, and you gave us exile. We tried to follow your rules, and you met us with violence. From now on, we make our own rules." The victory at Proxima Gate sent shockwaves to the galactic community. For the first time in centuries, a new species had defeated a council military force. The news spread quickly, reaching every corner of known space. Some species were terrified by the news. Others were intrigued. And a few began to wonder if the council's authority was as absolute as they had always believed. Colonel Rick Bailey led the ground forces that established a permanent base at Proxima Gate. The base was built on a small asteroid, with enough weapons and supplies to withstand the siege. It became humanity's first military outpost outside their original territory, a clear statement that they were not going back. "The council will respond," Bailey told his officers as they surveyed their new home. "They can't let this defeat stand." Without losing face, "Let them come," replied Major Kim Foster, Bailey's second in command. "We've proven we can beat them once. We can do it again." But Bailey wasn't so confident. He had studied military history, and he knew that winning the first battle didn't mean winning the war. "The problem isn't their military strength," he explained to his officers. "The problem is their numbers. There are 12 species in the council, and some of them have populations in the billions. If they all decide we're a threat, they could build a fleet that would overwhelm us through sheer numbers." "So what do we do?" asked Major Foster. "We make sure they don't all unite against us," Bailey replied. "We need allies." Back on Earth, Chancellor Kate Morgan was dealing with the political consequences of the battle. The victory had made humanity proud, but it had also made their situation more dangerous. "The Council is calling emergency sessions," reported Director Paul Anderson of the Terran Intelligence Service. "Some species are calling for immediate military action against us. Others are urging caution." Kate studied the intelligence reports. "Which species are on which side?" "The Vorthans and the Zephyrians want immediate action," Paul replied. "They're the ones who have the most military power in the Council. But the Altarians, Cetians, and Rigelians are asking questions about whether military force is the right approach." "What kind of questions?" "They're pointing out that we haven't actually attacked any Council worlds or citizens," Paul explained. "We've only defended ourselves and expanded into empty space. Some of them are." 5 years after the Battle of Proxima Gate, Chancellor Kate Morgan stood in the observation deck of Terra Station, humanity's massive orbital capital above Earth. The view was breathtaking. Ships from dozens of different species moved through the busy traffic lanes, carrying goods and people between the 47 star systems that now made up the Terran Federation. It was hard to believe how much had changed. When the Galactic Council had rejected humanity 10 years ago, Earth had been alone in the galaxy. Now the Terran Federation was home to not just humans, but also Altarians, Cetians, Rigelians, and representatives from 8 other species who had chosen to join humanity's growing empire. "Chancellor, the morning briefing is ready," said her aide, Commander Pete Walsh. He was a young man who had been born on one of the outer colonies and had never known a time when humanity was confined to one star system. Kate nodded and walked to the briefing room, where her senior staff was waiting. The room itself was a symbol of how much had changed. The conference table was designed to accommodate different alien body types, and the walls displayed star charts showing the extent of human influence across the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Jack Turner, now in charge of over 800 ships, stood as she entered. "Good morning, Chancellor. We have some interesting news from the Galactic Council." Kate took her seat. "What kind of news?" Admiral Turner activated the holographic display. "3 more species have broken away from the Council and are requesting membership in the Federation: the Denevians, the Spiccans, and the Vegan Confederation." Kate raised an eyebrow. "That would bring the Council down to just 6 member species." "5, actually," said Director Paul Anderson, head of Terran Intelligence. "The Arcturians announced yesterday that they're withdrawing from Council space entirely. They're not joining U.S., but they're declaring themselves neutral." Kate studied the display. When humanity had first been rejected, the Council had 12 member species. Now it was down to 5, and those 5 were struggling to maintain control over their own territories. "What's causing the exodus?" she asked. Dr. Helen Brooks, now serving as the Federation's chief science advisor, leaned forward. "Economic factors?" "Mostly. Our colonies are more prosperous than Council worlds, and our technology is advancing faster than theirs." "The ancient artifacts?" Kate asked. "That's part of it," Helen confirmed. "But it's also human innovation. We've developed new manufacturing techniques, better terraforming methods, and more efficient space travel. Species that join the Federation see immediate improvements in their quality of life." Admiral Turner added, "There's also the military factor. After Proxima Gate, everyone knows that Federation ships are superior to Council vessels. Species that feel threatened by their neighbors want our protection." Kate nodded. The Federation had grown not through conquest, but through attraction. Species joined because they wanted the benefits of human technology and the security of human military protection. "What about the remaining Council species?" she asked. Director Anderson's expression grew serious. "They're not happy. The Vorthans, in particular, are calling for military action to stop what they call human contamination of the galaxy." "Military action against whom?" Kate asked. "Against any species that joins the Federation," Anderson replied. "They're threatening to cut off trade and diplomatic relations with anyone who allies with us." Kate was quiet for a moment. The old Council was dying, but it was not going quietly. The remaining species were becoming more desperate and more dangerous as their influence declined. "Are they capable of carrying out their threats?" she asked Admiral Turner. "Militarily, no," Turner replied. "The remaining Council species have maybe 200 ships between them, and most of those are old and poorly maintained. We could defeat them easily if it came to war. But they could still cause problems," Director Anderson warned. "They're trying to form alliances with species outside the local area, groups that haven't had contact with either the Council or the Federation." Kate considered this. "Unknown aliens with unknown capabilities." "Exactly," Anderson confirmed. "Our scouts had detected increased activity in several distant sectors. The Council is reaching out to anyone who might help them contain human expansion." The briefing continued for another hour, covering trade reports, colony development, and military deployments. When it was over, Kate remained behind to speak with Admiral Turner privately. "Jack, do you think we've become what the Council feared we would become?" she asked. Turner considered the question carefully. "We've become powerful, if that's what you mean. But we haven't conquered anyone. Every species in the Federation joined voluntarily. But we have changed the balance of power in the galaxy," Kate pointed out. "Yes, we have," Turner agreed. "The question is whether that's a good thing or a bad thing." Kate looked out at the busy space lanes around Terra Station. "I keep thinking about what Ambassador Grant said when she came back from that first Council meeting. She said they thought we were too aggressive and unpredictable. Were they wrong?" Turner asked. Kate smiled. "No, they were absolutely right. We are aggressive and unpredictable, but those aren't necessarily bad qualities. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the communications center. Kate and Turner hurried to the main operations room, where Commander Walsh was waiting with a priority transmission. "What is it?" Kate asked. "A message from the Galactic Council, ma'am," Walsh replied. "It's addressed to you personally." Kate felt a chill. Put it through. The main screen flickered, showing a familiar figure. It was Council Leader Vexther, the same Vorthan who had rejected humanity's application 10 years earlier. He looked older and more tired than Kate remembered. "Chancellor Morgan," Vexther said, his voice formal but not hostile. "I speak for the remaining members of the Galactic Council. We request a meeting to discuss mutual cooperation and understanding between our peoples." Kate stared at the screen. After 10 years of conflict and competition, the Council was asking to negotiate. "We propose a summit meeting in neutral space," Vexther continued. "Representatives from both the Council and the Federation, working together to establish a new framework for galactic governance." The message ended, leaving Kate to stare at a blank screen. "They're asking to negotiate," she said, almost unable to believe it. "More than that," Admiral Turner observed. "They're asking us to help them govern the galaxy." Kate thought about the irony. 10 years ago, humanity had begged to join the Council and been rejected. Now the Council was begging humanity to save them from irrelevance. "What do you recommend?" she asked Turner. "We meet with them," he said immediately, "but as equals, not as supplicants. We're not the same species that came to them hat in hand. 10 years ago." Kate nodded. "Set up the meeting, but make sure they understand the terms. Any future discussions will be conducted as equals between sovereign powers." The summit meeting took place 3 weeks later in the neutral zone, a region of space that belonged to neither the Federation nor the Council. Kate led the human delegation, accompanied by Admiral Turner and representatives from the Federation's alien member species. The Council delegation was smaller than Kate had expected. Only 5 representatives, looking tired and defeated. Council Leader Vexther spoke for the group. "Chancellor Morgan," he began, "we come to acknowledge that the galaxy has changed. The old order is dying, and a new one is being born." "What are you proposing?" Kate asked. "A new galactic government," Vexther replied. "A federation of equals, with both our species and yours as founding members." Kate studied the alien leader. "Why now? What's changed?" Vexther was quiet for a long moment. "We were wrong," he said finally. "We judged your species based on fear rather than facts. We thought your aggressive nature would lead to conquest and destruction. Instead, you've built something better than what we offered you. The species that have joined your federation are more prosperous and secure than those that remained with us," added another council member. "We can no longer ignore the evidence." Kate felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction that humanity had finally been vindicated, but sadness that it had taken so long and cost so much. "What exactly are you offering?" she asked. "Partnership," Vexther said. "A new galactic order based on cooperation rather than control. Your federation has proven that different species can work together as equals. We want to be part of that." Kate looked at Admiral Turner, who nodded slightly. "We'll consider your proposal," Kate said, "but understand that any agreement must recognize the Federation's independence and sovereignty. We're not interested in joining your organization. We're interested in creating something new." The negotiations continued for days. In the end, they agreed to establish the Galactic Union, a loose alliance of independent federations and councils. The Terran Federation would be recognized as an equal partner, with the right to expand and govern as they saw fit. As Kate signed the agreement, she thought about the journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity had been rejected for being too aggressive and unpredictable, but those same qualities had allowed them to build an empire that attracted species from across the galaxy. "You know," she said to Vexter as they completed the sighting ceremony, "you were right about us being aggressive and unpredictable." The alien leader looked puzzled. "I